The bridge of the Asterisk Starlight's End Asterisk shook violently as another plasma burst struck its shields. Admiral Kethere gripped the command rail, her forearms trembling as she watched the tactical display. Red dots representing void swarm vessels surrounded the blue icons of her fleet like hungry predators circling wounded prey. "Status report," she called out, her translator converting her clicking speech into standard galactic. "Shields at 30% and falling. Admiral," reported her tactical officer, a young Rilani whose purple skin had turned pale with fear. "The Asterisk Morning Star Asterisk and Asterisk Hope's Dawn Asterisk have gone silent. We've lost contact with 12 vessels in the last 10 minutes. Through the massive viewport, Kethere could see the nightmare unfolding. The void swarm ships weren't like anything in the known galaxy. They moved like living creatures, their black holes rippling in changing shape as they attacked. Metallic tentacles stretched from their cores, grabbing coalition ships and tearing them apart piece by piece. The screams of dying crews echoed across emergency channels. One of the swarm vessels latched onto a coalition cruiser right before her eyes. The mechanical horror began drilling into the hull with spinning razor arms, cutting through advanced armor like it was soft cloth. Emergency lights flickered inside the breach ship as atmosphere vented into space. She watched helplessly as escape pods launched, only to be snatched up by smaller swarm drones that emerged from the main creature's belly. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Asterisk Valus Light Asterisk," her communications officer announced. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Captain Tholen of the Nexary species. His normally proud crest feathers were matted with blue blood, and sparks flew from damaged consoles behind him. "Kethere, we can't hold them," he gasped, his breathing labored. "These things, they're learning our tactics in real time. Every strategy we try, they adapt within minutes. My weapons officer says they're actually evolving countermeasures as we fight." Before Kethere could respond, Tholen's image distorted as something massive struck his ship. Through the static, she could hear the horrible sound of metal being torn apart. The transmission cut to black. "So," her navigation officer called out, "long-range sensors show the swarm's main force approaching Rilani Prime. Estimated arrival in 6 hours." Kethere felt her heart skip a beat. Home. Her mate and 3 children lived on the beautiful blue world below, along with 6 billion other souls who had never known war until this moment. The Coalition had enjoyed 3 centuries of peace, building art and music and literature instead of weapons. "How many ships do we have left?" she asked quietly. 47 operational vessels, Admiral, down from 230. The numbers hit her like a physical blow. The greatest fleet the Coalition had ever assembled, reduced to nothing in mere hours. She had watched species that had been allies for generations burn together in the cold vacuum of space. Send a priority transmission to the hegemony. Tell them we'll share all our technological advances in exchange for military assistance. Minutes passed before the response came. The hegemony's ambassador appeared on screen, his scaled face showing what might have been sympathy. "Admiral Kethere, the Hegemony Council has reviewed your request. While we appreciate your offer, engaging the Void Swarm will be tantamount to suicide. Our military advisors estimate a 97% casualty rate for any fleet attempting direct confrontation. We cannot risk our citizens for what appears to be a hopeless cause." The transmission ended abruptly. Kethere stared at the blank screen, feeling something cold settle in her chest. "Try the Trade Federation," she ordered. The response was similar. "Our deepest sympathies, Admiral, but the Federation cannot risk its merchant fleets. Perhaps if you had contacted us earlier." One by one, every major power in the galaxy delivered the same message. The Crystalline Collective wished them well but had their own borders to protect. The Binary Syndicate offered prayers but no ships. The Stellar Republic sent condolences and closed their communication channel. As a final rejection came through, Kethere looked around her bridge. Her crew, representatives of 12 different species who had lived and worked together in harmony, now faced death together. The young Nexary pilot at the helm had tears streaming down her face. The elderly Corvan engineer was muttering prayers to his ancestors. Even her normally unshakable first officer had his head buried in his hands. "Admiral," the communications officer said softly, Should we prepare the evacuation protocols?" Kethere walked to the viewport and gazed out at the burning wreckage that had once been the pride of Coalition space. In the distance, She could see more swarm vessels approaching, their dark forms blotting out the stars like a spreading infection. "Send one final transmission," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Open channel to all frequencies, every corner of the galaxy." She straightened her uniform and faced the communication array. "To any species listening, this is Admiral Carey of the Rilani Coalition. We are dying here. The Void Swarm will not stop with us. Eventually, they will come for you too. Please, if there's anyone out there brave enough to help, we're begging you. Don't let our children's last sight be these mechanical demons." The message transmitted into the endless DAC, carrying the final desperate hope of a civilization watching its last sunset. The war room aboard Terror Station buzzed with quiet tension as Admiral James Mitchell replayed the alien transmission for the 5th time. The holographic display cast an eerie blue glow across the faces of his senior staff, each one studying the footage of mechanical nightmares tearing apart ships with casual brutality. "Play the tactical analysis again, Patricia," Mitchell said to his aide, Captain Patricia Reeves. She had served with him for 8 years, through 3 border conflicts and countless peacekeeping missions. The display shifted to show technical breakdowns of the Void Swarm vessels. Their adaptive capabilities were unlike anything in human databases. Ships that changed shape mid-battle, weapons that evolved to counter enemy defenses, and worst of all, they seemed to learn from every engagement. "Sir, I've been running simulations all morning," said Commander Robert Hayes from the tactical station. His fingers danced across the holographic controls, bringing up battle projections. "Our AI model predicts a 70% casualty rate if we engage this enemy directly." Lieutenant Colonel Diana Foster, head of the Marine Corps contingent, leaned forward in her chair. "Admiral, with respect, those simulations are based on conventional warfare. These swarm things don't fight like anything we've encountered." "That's exactly my point, Colonel," Hayes replied, his voice tight with concern. "We're talking about an enemy that consumed the entire Hegemony Third Fleet in under 4 hours. The Crystalline Collective lost 800 vessels trying to defend their outer colonies. What makes us think we can succeed where they failed?" Mitchell studied the data scrolling across the screens. Ship count, casualty reports, desperate final transmissions from dying crews. The scale of destruction was staggering. Yet something else caught his attention, the alien admiral's final message. "Computer, replay the Coalition's distress call one more time," he ordered. The haunting voice of Admiral Carey filled the room. Even through the universal translator, her desperation was clear. But it was her final words that struck Mitchell most. "Please, if there's anyone out there brave enough to help, we're begging you. Don't let our children's last sight be these mechanical demons." The room fell silent. Captain Reeves cleared her throat. "So, the Joint Chiefs are calling this a suicide mission. Admiral Thompson specifically said we'd be throwing away human lives for aliens we've never even met." "He's got a point," added Major General William Brooks from the Army Liaison Desk. "Our first responsibility is to Earth and her colonies. Why risk our people for strangers?" Mitchell stood and walked to the massive viewport overlooking Earth. The blue marble hung in space below, peaceful and beautiful. Somewhere down there, his own daughter was probably in school, learning about math or history or art. Safe. Protected. "You know," he said quietly, "my grandfather used to tell me stories about the old wars. World War II, specifically. He'd talk about how his unit liberated concentration camps, so things that gave him nightmares for decades." He turned back to face his staff. "I asked him once why they kept fighting when it would have been easier to just worry about America. You know what he told me." The room waited. He said that when you see evil happening to innocent people, you have 2 choices. You can look the other way and tell yourself it's not your problem, or you can stand up and do something about it. He said the moment you choose to look away, you stop being human. Commander Hayes pulled up another display. "Admiral, even if we mobilize every available ship, we're talking about maybe 300 vessels. The swarm has consumed entire star systems. How do we fight something like that?" Lieutenant Colonel Foster slammed her hand on the table. "The same way humans have always fought when the odds were against us, with everything we've got. Remember the Alamo? Remember Thermopylae? Sometimes the fight itself matters more than the outcome." "Foster's right," Mitchell said, his voice growing stronger. These coalition species tried to fight the swarm using conventional tactics. Hit-and-run attacks, defensive formations, evacuation protocols. They fought like civilized beings trying to minimize casualties. He activated the tactical display again, highlighting human military doctrine. We don't fight like that. We fight like the children of a world that spent millions of years trying to kill us. We fight like predators who evolved by never giving up, never backing down, never accepting defeat. Captain Reeves looked up from her datapad. So, if we're really doing this, we need to move fast. Long-range sensors show the swarm is already advancing on coalition homeworlds. Mitchell nodded and activated his command authorization. All right, people. Emergency Protocol 7. I want every battleship, every cruiser, every destroyer that can fly mobilized within 6 hours. Send word to the shipyards. Maximum production on ammunition and supplies. The room exploded into activity as officers began coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. Video call connected to fleet commanders across the solar system. The massive shipyards of Luna, Mars, and Europa received priority orders for weapons and supplies. Admiral, Hayes called out over the noise, the Thunder's Rough Asterisk is requesting permission to lead the assault fleet. Mitchell smiled for the first time that day. The Thunder's Rough Asterisk was humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnought, bristling with experimental weapons and the latest defensive systems. If they were going to face mechanical nightmares from beyond known space, they might as well do it in style. Granted, have Captain Anderson prepare for immediate departure. As his staff worked frantically around him, Mitchell looked once more at the alien admiral's desperate message. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was fighting for its life against an enemy that had never known defeat. They were about to learn what humans were capable when properly motivated. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 230 vessels strong, led by the massive dreadnought Thunder's Rough Star. But the sight that greeted them made even the most hardened veterans stop and stare in horror. What had once been the thriving Nexary system was now a cosmic graveyard. Admiral James Mitchell stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching through the main viewport as chunks of planetary debris drifted past like massive tombstones. The third planet, which had housed 12 billion souls just days ago, was nothing more than a hollow shell. Its molten core hung exposed in space, still glowing red-hot where the void swarm had stripped away everything else. Jesus Christ, whispered Commander Robert Hay from the tactical station. They ate the whole planet. Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh at Communications was running deep space scans, her face pale. So, I'm reading massive debris fields throughout the system. Ship wreckage, habitat stations, even the orbital shipyards. Nothing was spared. The Thunder's Rough Asterisk glided through a field of twisted metal that had once been a proud coalition battleship. Mitchell could see through the viewport where something had torn through the hull with brutal efficiency. The edges of the breach were smooth, almost surgical, as if the ship had been dissected rather than destroyed. Admiral, called out Major Tom Bradley from the sensor array, I'm detecting faint energy signatures from the asteroid belt. Could be survivors. Before Mitchell could respond, a weak transmission crackled through the communication system. The image that appeared on the main screen showed an alien unlike anything humans had encountered. She had 4 arms, purple skin marked with intricate silver patterns, and large, intelligent eyes that held both hope and disbelief. Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Carey of the Relani Coalition. Please identify yourselves. Are you here to help? Mitchell stepped forward, his command presence filling the bridge. Admiral Carey, this is Admiral James Mitchell of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to fight the swarm. The alien's expression changed from hope to confusion. Human? I don't understand. We sent requests to every major power in the galaxy. The Hegemony, the Trade Federation, the Stellar Republic, they all refused. They said fighting the swarm was suicide. Well, Mitchell replied with a slight smile, they are probably right. But humans have a bad habit of doing things that are supposed to be impossible. Through the screen, he could see other alien faces gathering behind Admiral Carey. Representatives of different species, all wearing the same expression of shocked disbelief. One of them, a tall being with crystalline features, leaned forward. Admiral Mitchell, I am Science Commander Veltar of the Crystalline Collective. With respect, do you understand what you're facing? The Void Swarm has consumed 17 star systems. They adapt to every tactic, counter every strategy. No species has ever faced them in direct combat and survived. Lieutenant Colonel Diana Foster, who had been listening from the Marine station, stepped up beside Mitchell. Commander, how exactly have your people been fighting them? Fighting? Admiral Kethere's voice carried a note of confusion. We don't fight them directly. No one does. We use hit-and-run tactics, evacuation protocols, defensive formations designed to minimize casualties while protecting civilian populations. The bridge of the Thunder's Wrath asterisk fell silent. Mitchell exchanged glances with his senior staff, and he could see the same thought in every human face. They had been approaching this all wrong. Admiral Ketheray, Mitchell said carefully, show us the current location of the swarm's main force. The holographic display updated, showing a massive cluster of red dots moving toward what remained of the Coalition's core systems. The alien admiral highlighted their movement with tactical markers. They are heading directly for Rilani Prime, our homeworld. We estimate arrival in 18 hours. Our remaining 43 ships are attempting to harass their outer formations, but... Her voice trailed off helplessly. 43 ships. Commander Hayes asked, against how many swarm vessels? Current estimates suggest over 1,500 combat units, plus countless smaller drones and support craft. The numbers should have been daunting. Mitchell watched his crew process the information, so the brief moment of doubt crossed their faces. Then something else replaced it, the same look he'd seen in human eyes throughout history when facing impossible odds. Not fear, but determination. Not despair, but stubborn refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Kethere, Mitchell said, we're going to need you to transmit all available tactical data on swarm capabilities and behavior patterns. Of course, but Admiral... The alien commander hesitated. Surely you're not planning to attack them directly? No one has ever attempted a frontal assault on a swarm fleet. Mitchell turned to his navigation officer. Lieutenant Cooper, plot a course for the swarm's main force. Best possible speed. So, Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh called out from communications. Admiral Curry is requesting clarification on our battle plan. Mitchell looked directly into the alien commander's large, frightened eyes. Every species in this galaxy has been fighting the swarm like prey trying to escape a predator. You've been running, hiding, trying to minimize damage. He gestured to the tactical display showing the human fleet's formation. We're not prey. We're from Earth, a world that spent 4 billion years perfecting the art of survival through violence. We don't minimize damage. We maximize it. The alien admiral's image flickered as he processed his words. Admiral Mitchell, are you saying you intend to engage the entire swarm fleet in direct combat? That's exactly what I'm saying, Admiral. And we're going to show these mechanical nightmares why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The first wave of void swarm vessels emerged from the dark side of Kepler-7 like a nightmare made real. Admiral James Mitchell watched from the bridge of Thunder's Wrath asterisk as his tactical display lit up with thousands of red contacts. The mechanical horrors moved in perfect coordination, their black holes rippling and shifting as they accelerated toward the human fleet. All ships, battle stations, Mitchell commanded across the fleet communication channel. Remember, we're not here to win pretty. We're here to make these things bleed metal. The swarm ships were unlike anything human engineers had imagined. They looked more like living creatures in spacecraft, with segmented bodies that could split apart and reform at will. Massive tentacle-like appendages writhed from their cores, each one ending in spinning cutting tools or energy weapons that pulse with malevolent light. Captain Michael Barnes aboard the destroyer Defiant Asterisk was the first to engage. His ship's railguns opened fire at maximum range, sending tungsten slugs screaming through space at a significant fraction of light speed. The round struck a swarm vessel dead center, but instead of penetrating, the alien ship's hull simply absorbed the impact and began to glow brighter. What the hell? Barnes muttered, watching as the enemy vessel's surface rippled and changed. It's adapting to our weapons. Within minutes, the same railgun rounds that had damaged the first swarm ship were bouncing harmlessly off others. The creatures were sharing defensive improvements across their entire fleet in real time. All vessels, switch to rotating frequency pulse weapons, Admiral Mitchell ordered. Don't give them time to adapt. But the swarm had already begun their counterattack. Massive hive ships, each one the size of a small moon, disgorged clouds of smaller attack drones. These hunter-killers moved with frightening speed, their plasma cutters slicing through human armor like paper. The cruiser New York's Pride took a direct hit from a swarm capital ship's main weapon. The beam carved through her forward sections, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Captain Lisa Warren's voice crackled over the communication system. "We're taking heavy damage. Forward compartments breached, reactors showing instability." "Warren, get your people to the escape pods," Mitchell commanded. "Negative, Admiral. We still have rear guns operational. We're not done yet." That was when the aliens watching from their hidden positions in the asteroid field saw something that defied everything they understood about warfare. Instead of retreating or abandoning ship, the New York's Pride began accelerating directly toward the swarm vessel that had crippled her. Admiral Cathere watched in horror from her command ship. "What are they doing? That's suicide." The damaged human cruiser rammed into the swarm hive ship at full velocity. The collision was visible across the entire system, as both vessels erupted in nuclear fire. But the explosion took out 3 smaller swarm vessels that had been clustering around the hive ship. "My God," whispered Scion Commander Veltar from his crystal ship. "They turned their dying vessel into a weapon." The battle raged across 3 separate engagement zones as the swarm tried to surround the human fleet. But everywhere they struck, they encountered the same incomprehensible response. Humans didn't retreat when outgunned, they fought harder. Lieutenant Colonel Diana Foster had loaded her Marine assault shuttles with enough explosives to level a city block. As swarm boarding drones latched onto human ships, she led her Marines in counter-boarding operations that no sane species would attempt. "Alpha Team, we're going inside that thing," she announced over the Marine Command frequency, pointing at a massive swarm vessel that had grappled with a battleship Arizona's Revenge Star. "We plant charges in their central core and get out." Sergeant Tom Rodriguez replied, checking his pulse rifle. "What if we can't get out?" Foster smiled grimly as she sealed her combat armor. "Then we make sure the charges detonate anyway." The Marine assault shuttles punched through the swarm vessel's hull using shaped charges. Foster and 30 Marines fought their way through corridors filled with mechanical horrors that seemed designed by nightmares. The swarm's internal defenses were unlike anything in human tactical manuals. Living walls that grabbed at soldiers, floor surfaces that tried to digest intruders, ceiling-mounted creatures that dropped down with razor-sharp limbs. But humans had evolved fighting predators in dark caves and dense jungles. They adapted quickly, using flamethrowers and demolition charges to clear paths through the alien ship's living interior. Foster reached the creature's central core, a pulsing mass of organic machinery the size of a football field. She armed the nuclear charges personally, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. "Foster to Thunder's Wrath *, she transmitted. "Charges set. 30 seconds to detonation." "Colonel, what's your extraction status?" Admiral Mitchell's voice came through the static. Foster looked around at her Marines, half of whom were already down, the others still fighting desperately against waves of swarm defenders. She knew they wouldn't make it back to the shuttles in time. "Tell my kids I love them," she said simply, then switched to the Marine frequency. "All teams, this is Foster. It's been an honor serving with you." The nuclear explosion tore through the swarm vessel's core, chain reacting with its exotic energy systems. The massive creature convulsed and died, taking several smaller swarm ships with it as its death throes sent energy cascades through their connected network. Admiral Cathere watched the tactical display in stunned silence. The humans had lost nearly 40 ships, but they had destroyed over 300 swarm vessels. More importantly, they had done something no species had ever accomplished. They had hurt the swarm badly enough to make it retreat and regroup. "They fight like demons," she whispered to her bridge crew. "No wonder they call their world a death planet." The silence after battle was always the worst part. Admiral James Mitchell stood on what remained of the bridge of Thunder's Wrath, watching rescue shuttles dart between the floating wreckage that littered the Kepler system. Emergency lights cast eerie shadows across twisted metal and shattered viewports. The air recyclers wheeze as they struggle to clear the smoke from damaged systems. Final casualty report, sir. Commander Robert Hayes said quietly, his uniform torn and stained with hydraulic fluid from when a swarm tendril had breached the bridge 3 hours earlier. We entered the system with 230 vessels. 6 to 7 are still operational. 43 have major damage but can limp home. The rest... He didn't need to finish. Mitchell had watched good ships and better crews die in nuclear fire, ramming swarm vessels when their weapons failed, buying time for others to complete their missions. The Asterisk Defiant Asterisk, Asterisk New York's Pride Asterisk, Asterisk Boston Fury Asterisk, and dozens of others would never see Earth again. Human casualties. Mitchell asked, though he dreaded the answer. Approximately 43,000 dead or missing, say. Another 22,000 wounded. Mitchell closed his eyes. Each number represented someone's child, parent, or spouse who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help strangers. They had known the risks when they signed up, but that didn't make the wait any easier to bear. Through the cracked viewport, he could see the aftermath of humanity's first encounter with the Void Swarm. The mechanical nightmares that had terrorized the galaxy for decades were now nothing more than drifting scrap metal. But the cost had been enormous. Entire sections of space were filled with debris from both human and swarm vessels, creating a graveyard that would orbit these stars for centuries. Admiral. Lieutenant Jennifer Walsh called from her damaged communication station. Incoming shuttle from the Coalition fleet. Admiral Ketere requests permission to come aboard. Mitchell nodded, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through his skull. The medics had patched up the plasma burns on his arms and the concussion from when a swarm energy blast had knocked him unconscious, but he still felt like he'd been hit by a freight train. Grant permission. Have her meet me in Medical Bay 3. The human medical bay was a testament to battlefield efficiency rather than comfort. Admiral Ketere entered to find Mitchell sitting on an examination table while a medical robot applied synthetic skin patches to burns across his forearms. His uniform was torn in several places, and a bandage covered a gash above his left eye. The alien admiral studied him with her large, intelligent eyes. Up close, Mitchell could see that she wasn't unharmed either. Her purple skin showed stress patterns, and one of her forearms was supported by a medical sling. Admiral Mitchell, she said, her translator converting her clicking speech into accented English. My medical staff insisted I remain in our own facility, but I had to see you in person. Admiral Ketere, Mitchell replied, wincing as a medical robot sealed another burn. How are your people holding up? Alive, thanks to you. She moved closer, her expression mixing gratitude with something that looked like confusion. That's what I don't understand. My species has studied galactic history for centuries. No civilization has ever risked so much for strangers. The hegemony looks after their own territory. The Trade Federation protects their profit margins. The Stellar Republic maintains their borders. She paused, studying his battered face. But you crossed half the galaxy to fight an enemy you'd never encountered, to save people you'd never met. Why? Mitchell was quiet for a long moment, listening to the sounds of repair crews working throughout the ship. In the distance, he could hear the mournful wail of a damage control siren marking another hull breach that needed sealing. You know, he said finally, my daughter is about your people's equivalent of 8 years old. She's back on Earth, probably in school right now, learning about mathematics, art, or music. Safe. He looked directly at Kay. When your distress call reached us, all I could think about was how I'd feel if she was in danger and no one came to help because it was too risky or too expensive or just not their problem. The alien admiral's crest feathers, which had been lying flat against her head, rose slightly. Your entire species mobilized a fleet based on empathy for children you've never seen. That's part of it, Mitchell admitted. But there's more. Humans spent millions of years evolving on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to stand together against impossible odds. We learned that when predators come for the innocent, you don't calculate odds or minimize losses. You fight with everything you have. The medical robot finished its work and rolled away on silent wheels. Mitchell flexed his newly treated arms, testing the synthetic skin grafts. The swarm counted on fear, he continued. They expected every species to act rationally, to prioritize self-preservation over helping others. They never encountered a species stupid enough to charge directly into overwhelming odds because it was the right thing to do. Admiral Ketere was quiet for a long time, processing his words. Finally, she spoke. The Coalition Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss reconstruction efforts. They want to offer you anything we have: technology, resources, territory. What do you want in return for what you've done? Mitchell stewed slowly, his body protesting every movement. We want nothing, Admiral. We came here to help, not to conquer or profit. 3 months later, the story had spread across every inhabited world in the galaxy. The species that called themselves humans, from the death world called Earth, had done the impossible. They had met the unstoppable Void Swarm in direct combat and won. More importantly, they had done it for free, asking nothing in return except the knowledge that innocent lives had been saved. The hegemony began restructuring their military doctrine, studying human tactics. The Trade Federation quietly increased their defense budgets. The Stellar Republic opened diplomatic channels with Earth for the first time in their history. But in the quiet corners of the galaxy, in refugee camps and frontier colonies, in places where the strong preyed on the weak, a new legend was born. When all hope seemed lost, when extinction loomed and no help seemed possible, there was one species that would answer the call. The humans, the Deathworlders, the ones who fought hardest when the odds were worst. Asterisk the END asterisk.